This episode is sponsored by the Twindle Foundation. Learn more at www.twindlefoundation.org.
Let's talk.
So many people stay hidden due to fear. Fear of judgment, shame, or even guilt. You are not alone on your journey. Girl, you are not alone. This is a safe place. A place to be heard, a place to be free, a place to be yourself. Bring your girlfriends and let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. Oh, Terrell, I am so happy to hear from you. I'm so happy that it's
been a long time in the making right here.
I know, and I'm so excited because number one is because I hit the record button this time.
See, y'all miss all kind of gold now, man.
I know, but we're gonna rewind back a little bit so we can make sure that you get the nuggets. But Terrell, I want you to just go back and I want you to share your journey from when you graduated from college at USC Columbia, and you decide to pack up your Mitsubishi Eclipse and head out west to California to live your dream.
Yeah. So we were saying earlier, I hopped on that freeway, I-20 to the I-10. I remember very vividly, I had my car packed to the brim, couldn't look out the window. I was like, I ain't got no reason to look back anyway. I'm going forward. So I couldn't see out the window, just side view mirrors and God. That's all I have in the room.
That's right. The side view mirror and God.
That's it. That's all I had. And I was excited. I was nervous. Luckily, right before, a couple months before, I didn't have a job lined up. Didn't know anybody. The only thing I had was I had found a roommate online, which I was terrified of. I was just like, oh God, I just hope it's not a crackhead. But we ended up still. It was a really cool guy.
That was good.
And then I didn't have a job lined up, but luckily before I decided to move, once I made up my mind to move to California, there was a variety production list that I somehow exported to an Excel sheet and phone numbers. I would call it over and over. If I don't know anybody, let me try and make some kind of connection. And it was over 100 numbers, and I called for 5 months straight. And 3 people might have called me back, and this one lady, she's really, really sweet. Her name is Marsha Posner Williams. I got to give her a shout out. She was like, you know what? Hey, if you move over here, hit me up, say hi, and we'll go from there. I was like, okay, cool. So I got to LA, literally 2 days before my birthday. And then I hit her up hey, I'm here. She's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, come to my house, say hi, and we'll just chat up a bit. So I did that, and she told me a little bit about her own story, how she was homeless for a little bit, and she ended up being one of the producers on Golden Girls and Benson and some really, really big shows back then.
That's amazing.
And, right? And I think her going through her trials and tribulations was able to help. She made her want to help me. So she told me about different websites where I could find work and things like that. And I ended up finding probably 2 or 3 different jobs when I first got here. One was an internship that turned into paid work after a while. And then I eventually found my job that I was working at for a long time at a talent agency that I worked for years through that website that she told me about.
Good. Yeah. You know what? I think that, and I like what you said, the lady, she shared what her process looked like, because a lot of times, we see people chasing their dreams or going after whatever it is that they believe in. And we see the beginning and we see the end once they make it, but no one ever talks about that process, and the thing is that our stories aren't going to be the same. We're probably not going to have the same hardship, but there may be some obstacles. And I love to tell people the ugly side of my story, because not to scare them away from, going after it, but I want them to see that it's not as easy. Embrace yourself. You're probably going to be on a ride. You have, you have to get your feet planted and just keep going. And that stuff is hard. It really is. And you hear people say, just keep going, or people try to give some encouragement, and especially, and they don't understand, they want to be supportive and give encouragement, but at the same time give a little empathy too, because it's rough out here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What I'm saying? They just make it seem like it's so easy, and it's not easy. But the thing is that people don't understand, and that's why I always try to share that process so that people would know what it looks like.
You know what? Let me look directly in this camera. Yo, listen, if you got a dream out there, it's gonna get rough. It's gonna get bumpy. It's gonna get turbulent, and man, you
Yes.
got to hold on to your faith. You gotta love it. You gotta have it go in with all your heart. And much people, you're gonna have like really good people to help you along the way, but just know it's not going. It's gonna be mostly on you. You gotta have the heart for it. You gotta really, 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 really want it. Whatever you want to go out for, whatever it is.
It's funny that you say that because just the other day I was having this conversation with God and I was just like, God, how is it that I can hop on a plane, experience some turbulence, and I immediately go into God, I trust you. I know that you're going to take care of me. You're going to land this plane. But when my life has those turbulence, maybe because it's a longer season, and it's just like, God, what in the world? When are you going to land this plane? Like, when is this storm going to be over? So it's a big difference, but it's almost like, when you're in the air, you know that something's going to happen. You know that plane's going to land, or at least we're very hopeful that our chances are the plane is going to land. And so it's like, okay, God, I trust you. I know you're going to bring us through this. But when life hits us, and we feel those turbulence, when we feel the shaking or the awakening, it's like, God, what in the world? And then you go through it for a little bit and, you find your strength and you have your faith. And then the longer it goes, it seems like sometimes those seasons last a long time. And it's just like, man, when is that break going to come for me, God?
It's like you are sitting out playing. Like when I'm on the plane with this little turbulence, I'm like, okay, still bumpy now. But okay, as soon as that unfasten your seatbelt, like come back on, that means be good. That means be good. Man, sometimes that fasten seatbelt sign going to stay on for way longer than you think. Yes. Like something like I remember because I went through a period. I'm pretty sure we'll get there later on, but like there was like, okay, I got my seatbelt fastened. It's a little bumpy right now. And any second that light gonna turn off, and it's gonna be safe to walk around the cabin.
Maybe it's a little bit easier because we know the arrival time. You know what I'm saying? We know, maybe that's what it is. I just thought about that. Maybe because we have an idea of the arrival time because, if I'm taking a flight somewhere, maybe up north or something like that, you know what I'm saying? And it's like maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours on the plane. And then you're like, okay, I can do this. I know what time I'm supposed to be there. You know what I'm saying? So you look forward to that. But in life, we don't know when we're going to arrive at those places, and we don't know how long we're going to be in it. And so I think that's probably the hardest part. That's the lesson for me.
That's a word right there. I didn't think about that. That's such a great point. Because you were so right. You don't know when you're landing. You don't know when you're coming up, going down. You don't know none of that. And the anticipation and the unknown of it all is very terrifying. I think that's what was probably one of the most terrifying parts for me to move over to LA, just the unknown. But I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm terrified to go. I don't know anybody, don't have a job lined up. But I was to myself, if I go over there and I fail, at least I can say I tried. Yeah. At least I can say I tried. If I got to take my black behind back home to South Carolina, Georgetown, wherever, I was like, okay, at least I can say I went over there and I gave it a shot. Yeah. But that unknown is terrifying. I think that's one of the biggest things that stops a lot of people in their tracks from going after something that they've never done before.
I want to circle back right quick because this is the part that we talked about before I forgot to hit. I realized I didn't hit the record button, but I want you to share it. Just tell us again, just about, okay, for a lot of times when people have this crazy faith and they're going to do something that probably nobody has done before, nobody that they know, you know what I'm saying? Or when somebody hasn't seen that type of stuff or they hadn't done it, then people sometimes have like negative comments or remarks or try to shake things up, may put a little doubt or fear in you. And so for those people that are thinking about doing something and you have negative people in your ear, tell us about your experience, like with your family and friends, the people that were surrounding you when you said, hey, I'm packing up and I'm going to LA and I'm going to give this thing a shot. I don't care what happens. Just like you said, if I have to bring my tail back, I'm coming back. Tell us what that was like for you, like the people around you and how you were supported or not supported.
Yeah, for me, luckily, my mom, Terrell Lawrence, I gotta give her a shout out. Like my mom is the biggest cheerleader of her kids. Like, there's 3 of us, and she is the biggest supporter. Always fed into us, like whatever dreams we have, we can do, no matter what. So thankfully, I never had that, and I know many other people have had the complete opposite. But I think my biggest holder backer was me. Like I was the one that was more faithful. Like I was holding me back more than anybody else. Like even when I made decisions, I teetered back and forth so much because of the unknown of it all. So I think that, but like whenever we talk to my mom or anybody else in my family, like, no, like go for it. And like the only kind of resistance I had, because I remember at the time before when I moved from Columbia to LA, I was working as a security guard. So I would tell some of them, the guys are like, yeah, I'm quitting, I'm leaving, I'm going to LA. And they're like, "Oh, are you joining the military?" I'm like, "No, I'm trying to go after some dreams." Like, I'm like, "Why you gotta?" I mean, not in the military at all, but you gotta be in the military to make that move.
Yeah.
I'm just stepping out on faith. I want to take a chance. I want something more than what I'm doing right now, so I'm going to take that chance. So I kind of got resistance from them, but I didn't care because I was like, "Man, I know y'all like that." But
Right.
but I think the reason why I didn't really care is because at that time when I really made my mind up, I was like, "Okay, I'm ready to do this regardless." So I think it's one of those things that it don't matter like who is a naysayer or a hater. Like, long as you know for yourself that this is what you want to do, ain't nobody can talk you out of it. And I think it's more important to make sure you got that right mindset and like you ready to do this. I'm ready to battle up. I'm ready to suit up. I'm going to do this. And that outpowers any naysayer, even if it's your family, your mama, your brother, your dad, whatever it is. It'll overcome a lot of that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I'm just so amazed by, and I don't know if you shared this again. I'm sorry, it's stuck in my head. You were talking about how you created that in that Excel spreadsheet, how you put all those names in there, researched people and and started making those phone calls. And that's big because I had an opportunity. This was sometime, I think it was last year, November. And I had an opportunity to speak with this celebrity hairstylist. Her name is Nakia Rashawn. And she just shared how she would watch movies and look at the credits at the end of the movie. And she started seeing this name that popped out, that this one person name that was there continuously. And so she ended up reaching out to the person, just asking for some advice and, saying just little things or whatever like that, just getting a little bit of pieces for the puzzle. And then she ended up interning with that person later on. And I feel like sometimes people are afraid to reach out or, because you don't, and I don't know, I can't say that it might be the rejection, don't know, or may not know what to say. I say, go out there and do it and just put together something crazy. Cause that's what I do. Crazy faith is what I live by. And so I'm not afraid of just going out and just speaking to people because what do you have to lose? And they're just people. And I think that that's the part that we don't realize, that we're all just ordinary people. I don't care what people end up doing in life, what status that they have, how they got there is because of their faith and their faith in God, and that's, so you have to realize that they're just people and they started where you may have started where you started. And that is okay. It's probably okay that you reach out to them. Don't be afraid.
No, and that's I'm glad you said it because that was actually a process for me because I'm one of the people, just like most people, like a lot of people, like I don't like to ask for handouts and blah 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 blah. I won't be able to do it on my own. I don't like to bother nobody. So it took me a very long time to be comfortable reaching out to people and be like, taking bolder choices and chances.
Yeah.
It's like to a certain degree, like, of course, me looking for a job, I'm like, okay, of course I'm looking for work and I can do that because that's a natural process of it. But going like an extra step, like, hey, like I want to do this and being intentional about like telling people, hey, this is what I want to do. If there's something you can help me with, that's cool. If not, then that's fine too. But a lot of times it took me a long time personally to get there. It took me like literally after I got like, I'm pretty sure we'll talk about it later. Like after I got on one of my second TV show that I was writing for, my boss literally, we went out for breakfast or something. He literally was like, why don't you reach out to me to refer you for jobs and work? And I was like, huh? So he shows me a list of people that's emailing constantly, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? He's like, why aren't you doing this? You should be doing this. I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm the person, like, I'm not gonna bug nobody. I'm not gonna like be somebody like, oh, I want a handout. And I don't want people to think I'm trying to use them. So that was always in the back of my mind. Like I would rather not reach out to nobody instead of them having them thinking that I'm just trying to use them for what I can get out of them. But he literally like, no, this is how the business works, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it wasn't until that point. Yeah, it wasn't until that point that I was like, okay, now I'm more comfortable doing it, and I got and I understand it a lot better now.
I think the part that we fail to realize is that, okay, so these people have what we need, but we also have what they need. And this is a balance. Yeah. This is a balance because a lot of times we continue to walk in situations feeling like that we don't have any value or we don't have anything to bring to the table. And that's just the opposite because you have a gift inside of you. Everyone has a gift inside of you. And someone may need that, but they would never know because they don't know what you have inside of you.
Yeah.
I started a job position. One time I went to work for a company, and when I got there, like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that it wasn't going to just happen. So I went to my manager and I said, hey, you know what? This is the position that I'd like to have. And he says, well, hold on a second. You can't just walk in here, just feel like this, saying like it's going to happen overnight. Like, we're just going to end. But a few months later, maybe 6 months later, I believe, he remembered that conversation. And when they decided to open up that position, I was the one that was in, saying the top choice of it. But if someone doesn't know what you're looking for, how do they know that you're interested when that position comes open? So how does someone out there know what you're trying to do? Because someone may see your gift and they see your talent or just believe in you. It could be something small that you mentioned conversation wise, and then bam. But the thing is that the thing that we need to realize is that we need people. We do. We all need each other. I don't care how people say I don't need anybody. Yes, you do. We do. And I've been there myself. I thought that I could make it out on my own, and no, I couldn't. And that's when I've always been able to, I don't know. I've always had good, I don't want to say luck. I want to say favor from God. I've always had favor where if I reached out to someone, they would openly share with me I always felt like God placed people in my path. And, saying to give me whatever it is that I needed for that next season in my life or for my journey. Yeah. So, that's why we shouldn't be afraid to reach out for people, because the right person is already positioned for us anyway.
That is so true. That is so true. And I have an example of that too. I think people want to see that you're hungry and that you want it, and like you making that phone call that did that for you. And I had almost the same similar situation. So like one of the, I think I told you, I got in contact with 3 different people that called me back from that list of 100. And I just wanted this person, I wanted this job so bad. I was like, listen, I'm over here. I need income. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was very, very extremely persistent. And this one person I kept calling over and over and over. I will never forget. It was for the Judge Joe Brown show. That was back in the day. And it was a producer named Drew Nannis. I will never forget it. I called this man so much. I'm like, hey, you guys looking for work? Okay, you guys got any opening? Okay, cool. I had already sent them my resume probably before I even left Columbia. I had already sent them my resume. They're like, okay, well, we don't have any openings, but just keep calling back. I'm like, okay, cool. So, and I did. I called back probably every week or every 2 weeks, and they're like, no, nothing yet. So I was like, okay, so they never had any jobs. So I kept moving, and I eventually got to the talent agency I was working at, and I was probably there for a week or so. And when literally one random day, they called me like, hey, this is Terrell. I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, this is the Judge Joe Brown production. You still looking for work? And I was like, oh man. I was like, shoot. I was like, yeah, I was like, well, I got a job now. But I'm like, yo, I was still trying to work. But I just wanted that job so bad. And I pursued that job so hard. I was like, yo, this is a phone call I've been waiting for forever. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm working at the talent agency, but you guys need anybody to work on the weekends? They're like, nah, I don't really do nothing on the weekends. I was like, okay, cool. But the fact that they even remember me for my persistence and how doggedly I was about, I need work. I need to go about it hard. I think it's that persistence that will show out more than anything else, more than who you eventually get to know people because of your persistence, honestly. So,
what I believe that I think that because even sometimes when things doesn't work out, I feel like God is just giving us another piece of the puzzle. He shows us what's to come. Just like as you made that list of people and that you called, and 3 people responded back. That was the hope that you needed to move forward. I got this. Yeah. And then even though you weren't available for that position that came with the show, but you were persistent and you kept calling. Yeah. And even though you didn't, but that just said, hey, listen, if you continue to be that way as you can move forward, these opportunities just like this will show up. Sometimes it may not be the right timing. It's always God timing, but I feel like those are the keys that God be giving us, you know what I'm saying? Because at some point the door is going to open for us, Yeah,
absolutely. Keep that hunger, keep that fervor. Like what's that movie, the Wayne Brother movie, Message? Message. If you listening, if you in tune with God, I'm telling you, He will give you signs. And even the fact that I remember, I think it's more of a superficial thing, but when I first moved here, I went to church literally that first Sunday I was here. Met Denzel, literally my second day.
Shut up.
I was like, okay, well, maybe that's a message too. Just come out here, you out here doing your thing, you out here ready to grind, and this brother is highly successful. I don't even know this brother's whole story, But just being able to meet him at the pinnacle of his life where he was doing well, like maybe if you keep going hard and keep being faithful, you can get it. You know, it's going to be a little bumpy. I mean, I ain't know how bumpy it was going to get.
But really, God.
Yeah, right. But it was all for the good, and like, yeah, just be in tune with that, and be open to the messages.
Yep. Yeah. Just know everything. Like I always think that there's a sign, and I'm like, okay, God, I see you. And I feel like it's just hope that gives us the push that we need, because when you're surrounded by successful people, that shows you that. And I always feel that way, like, oh, God is showing me that I can be this successful. And sometimes even like I hear people talking about these tables and people building tables and they don't want you to sit a seat at the table and all kind of stuff. The thing is that when you're open to those things, and I know sometimes people like, I don't get a seat at the table and I create my own table. But the thing is that when you get in that environment, sometimes you just need to absorb it. You know what I'm saying? Just take in and just be thankful. Just thank God for that moment that he just gave you a glimpse of what your future could be like. Because sometimes that's all it is. You know what I'm saying? Just ask God, what is it that he is showing you, versus feeling like, you know what I'm saying, like you're supposed to go in there and do something courageous or whatever like that. Sometimes it could just be God is like, this may be coming in the future and not, you know what I'm saying? He's giving you that opportunity to just be in that moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. But I've always felt like I've always been one of the type of people like, you know, learn the rules so you can break them. Just sit there, observe, take it all in, you know, just be quiet as a mouse, look at it and observe it. And then once you got all your knowledge, and then you strike. Because I will say sometimes you do have to like, okay, well, this sometimes the system and society is not necessarily built towards what I want to do, what I was trying to try to do. Sometimes you really, really do have to go out there and take charge and take your own like future in your own hands. But I will say, I think it definitely benefits people to really, really learn the rules, understand what the culture is, understand what's going on, what this is, and then figure out the way how you yourself individually can make a difference in your own life too.
That's the biggest part right there. Learn the rules, observe, see what people are doing, and then make your move. Then start to, you know what I'm saying? And that's the biggest part, because sometimes, and maybe I've done this before too, sometimes you just walk into places and feel like, well, you have all the knowledge and you know how this is supposed to be. Yeah, you probably do. And maybe it could be done differently. And I understand that, but just wait until it's your time, your season. And then just go out there and just, and then you're able to do it your own way. I mean, look at Tyler Perry. Because them doors wasn't open for him. What they tell him? No. They said no.
Yeah, and I remember back in the day when he first his play stuff first started taking off, and I remember he saying like when he first started like venturing into TV, he's like, no, he's like, this network is telling me this. I was like, no, because he knew his worth at the time. I think that's one of the biggest things too. And honestly, this is stuff I'm recently just now learning. Like I've been out here for like 16 years. I'm only 16 years old, so that means I moved out here when I was fun. So don't do the math, y'all. Don't do that. But like I feel like I'm just now learning a lot of this stuff, and knowing your worth is one of the biggest things. I think not only in Hollywood and anything, in any venture in your life that you want to go for, even your personal life, knowing your worth is important, because that brother knew his worth. He knew what he was worth, so he was able to say no. A lot of times, especially I can speak from Hollywood because I work in Hollywood more. This business works a lot out of fear. There's a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity. So a lot of those no's that you get, a lot of it is coming from insecurity from somebody else. It's maybe threatening or whatever the case is. There's a bunch of different variable reasons. But knowing your worth in personal and professional life is extremely important. And I'll just be real. I think I'm just now starting like, okay, all right, I'm starting to see my worth. I'm starting to, tap into that. Yeah. And it's still a process, but I think it's extremely important for everybody to tap into that.
But think about it, right? So sometimes people they go out there and they hustle and they grind and they get a little something, you know what I'm saying? You might get a gig or two, and then you keep continuing to grind. And then at one point, it's like you're building up to that. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have the biggest season of your career, and then things start to really take off. So it's just like you're putting yourself out there, you're learning the business, people are learning who you are, seeing what you can do, and then all of a sudden, and it may take years, because the success doesn't happen overnight, and that's the part that people really have to see. And sometimes you may have to sacrifice and lose some things. It's all about whatever it is you're willing to sacrifice and give up in order to get yourself to that next level. And a lot of times people, sometimes people find their break right when they're just like, when they're down to nothing. And that's when God just kind of pushed it. Let's talk about, I'm gonna have to back up because I'm getting excited too. You remember that time? This was like a decade ago. You remember that time you and D, this is when D lived in California, right? And you and D were on this webinar. Huh?
D Chantel?
Yep. And you were on this webinar with Michael Elliott, and you send me a text message, right? And you're like, hey, we're on this webinar or whatever like that. I'm gonna give you the code, the link, and get on or whatever. And Michael Elliott was sharing his story. He was sharing his story about, and I want to say that he had lost his job. And then he was going to write a play, and one of his best friends was a screenplay writer, and I think she was just getting her feet wet and just moving forward, and she kind of, I don't want to say criticized because I don't want to use a term that he didn't use, but she kind of like downplayed, like, you don't know what you're doing, like you don't know anything about this, and he didn't care. He was just like, I'm just going to do it. Like he had just lost his job. He didn't know what he was going to do, and so he really didn't know a whole lot about it. But he just went in there and this is when he created Just Right. Right. Yeah, because I remember this so good because the three of us was on there and I'm just like, I'm soaking it all in. And I remember texting my mentor and I was like, hey, I'm on this webinar with Michael Elliott. You want to get on? I'll give you the link. And he goes, no, but I want you to set me up an appointment with this, have a conversation with Michael Elliott. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, who? How am I do that? How am I do it? But it was so crazy. And so I'm just like, I just felt like that was a God moment for me. Because in the end, I ended up setting up the interview with Michael Elliott, but it was just like, I felt like God, even though it was not my time, I just felt like God brought me on that with my friends. We shared that moment and you know what I'm saying? I just feel like you just never know what's to come in the future. You know what I'm saying? The three of us are on here. You know what I'm saying? We all have our own dreams of what we want to do. It's bigger for you than it is for me. It probably was bigger for you than it was for D. But we know that at some point in our life, we may all end up coming back to this and create something. You know what I'm saying? I always feel like it's always a divine moment, And so you just never know what God produces in the future. We might have a little something.
It's so funny because sometimes, like in life, like as a writer, my brain just works as like almost like this building story and stuff. So moments like that is like, oh, I'm gonna give you a nugget here, I'm gonna give you a nugget there, not even realizing you're gonna be able to utilize that nugget way down in the finale or whatever it is when you get further into your story. And that's exactly what those moments are. I think God gives us these little nuggets. Life gives us little nuggets. Like, okay, listen to that. Observe this. Learn this, because that's going to come in handy for you later. And I think there's a lot of things in our lives that sometimes we can take some messages for granted sometimes. Or sometimes we don't really fully appreciate until like, oh, you know what? When this person so said this, it was really meaning this, blah, blah, blah. And so like a lot of life is picking up on those nuggets, and sometimes it's about being in the right space to receive that and understand that, like come to full appreciation for what it really means. Like, of course, like when we were kids, and our mom and our parents are scolding us, we're like, man, why are you doing this so hard? But once we get older and we're like, oh, okay, now I understand like what they were saying. So all of these nuggets really come to help us be a better person. And then it's not until we're like ready to fully receive that message that we really fully, I guess, feel the impact of it, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So, you know what? I want you to tell me when did you decide that you wanted to become a writer? Did you always knew this in high school, or this was something that you came to when you were in college?
So I didn't always know, especially being from South Carolina, Georgetown, South Carolina.
Hey, Georgetown.
Like we didn't know we could do that. I mean, we went to the same. We went to Plansville High School. PvP till we die. PvP till we die.
Lord have mercy.
But so like in the country, we didn't know we could do this. But I always loved TV, and especially like anybody, like a lot of us who like was half raised by grandmas too. Like was forced to watch soap operas and TV all day long.
I love the soap opera stuff.
Man, listen, I had to rebel. My grandma, like, she forced it too much. I'm like, nope, I'm out. But like, so I didn't know that's something you could do. But it wasn't until I went to school, until I took a writing class, and I was like, oh, this is something you can do. I can marry writing and with TV as well, because I always loved reading as well. And it also came, I remember after I graduated from high school, everybody was trying to do like I want to be an engineer. I wanted to do like thing. And then I remember I went to some school program at TSU in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. Because they had a really, really good engineering program. One of the best HBCUs that has a good engineering program. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And man, I did so bad on one of the exams there. The instructor wrote in there, "Why are you still here?"
Oh, dang!
But it was cool because I was like, I don't know if this is for me. So that was like my confirmation. Like, okay, oh yeah, I'm like, yep, this ain't for me. So I did that, and then eventually I ended up transferring back to USC, South Carolina, because the out of state was crazy. And yeah, so I found out about this class. Actually, it was one of my friends, Matt, because I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think I was studying biology at the time, and I talked to one of my friends, Matt Richard, and he was like, oh, and because I told him, he's like, yo, what do you want to do? And I was like, I kind of want to like do writing. I kind of want to do art stuff. Like, I don't know. I just didn't know. And he's like, there's like a media arts program here at the school. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, look it up. And I looked it up. So shout out to Matt. I really got to give shout out to Matt. Because Matt was really the first one to tell me like USC had that program there.
It's the teacher in him. It's the teacher in him.
Exactly. It's exactly why he turned out the way he did. He's such a good dude. And yeah, so like I looked it up. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I started taking like writing classes, audio editing classes, like video editing classes, photography, all this stuff. And I took that writing class and I fell in love. I was like, oh man, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to do writing. And then once I realized how much I loved it, I was like, you know what? I gradually started realizing, you know what? I think I'm gonna give LA a shot. Because I never seriously thought about moving to LA till like way later on, when I was in Columbia. And yeah, I took that class. I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want. Yeah.
When I was younger, I remember always sitting in my bedroom and journaling. And I used to read like a lot of books. There used to be these, I don't know, I used to order these books offline, and they were like 6 books for like 99 cents. And then you can get like a subscription. Yeah. And so I would always order those books and I would read them very quickly. And I was always so captured into stories. And I journaled a lot, and I used to sit at the window. Like I wasn't like really big on going outside, and I would always sit on the floor at the window with the window up, and I would always just journal. But I never saw myself as a writer, not at all. And later on, it was just like I enjoyed like writing poetry, and then I started writing little things or whatever like that. But I was always a storyteller. Like I could always put words together to create like an image, you know what I'm saying? So people could feel what I was saying. And one of my friends says, you've always had that gift of putting words together and capturing people. And so I remember I used to go to, and I still didn't take it seriously. And then later on, I started going to seminars for writers, writer seminars. And I always feel like if you could pour into yourself and just being able to be in a room with people from all over, you know, having the same vision, wanting to write and create. And I always felt like I was the creator. That was just something that was in me. And so then I started having the vision of writing movies or whatever like that. But I'm like more of a Hallmark, sappy type, you know what I'm saying? Or one of those things like where there's some hidden message in it. There always has to be a message for people, because when I watch movies, I'm always seeing the messages in there. And it makes me think, like I go to the theater a lot, before the pandemic, my best friend and I used to go to the theater a lot. And we used to watch I would go to Charlotte like on a Friday. We would go a Friday. We would go to the theater on Friday night and see a movie. We would go on Saturday, and sometimes we watch 3 movies on Saturday. So 1 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and still catch another one on Sunday before I leave to go back home.
But let me ask you, were you paying for all these tickets, or were you sneaking around?
No. I paid for all the tickets. I paid for all the tickets.
I was kind of curious because I know me. I would have been like, all right, I'm gonna go see this one. I'm gonna pay for that one.
No. We paid for them. We paid for them. And then we take like breaks in between and go get something to eat or something like that. We were just like movie junkies, And so that's how I knew that I had a real passion for movies and writing and stuff like that. And I just feel like we create our own atmosphere. I always study a lot of things. I study everything, pick it apart and put it back together, that type of stuff. So that's when I knew I knew that I had a love, for writing and creating.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think too. Like, I remember like some of my earlier on, like, okay, what was some kind of clues for me? Like, I remember I used to read, like, oh man, the Goosebumps books.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I remember loving them Goosebumps book, and then I remember they started coming out with the Choose Your Own Adventure ones. I wanted to read like all aspects of the story. And I will never forget. And I obviously made an impact because I still remember this day. Do you remember like the old BSAP test we used to take, like in middle school and stuff? I remember I got a perfect score on one of my BSAP writing courses. I'll never forget that. I was like, oh, okay, I got 100. I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah,
so
wow.
My first time I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this, but still, you just don't really you don't know if you got a voice or what your penmanship is like or whatever the case is. But it's also just being in tune with who you are and what you gravitate towards a lot of times. And as you get older, thankfully, we were blessed to be brought up in a space where it allowed for that to happen because not everybody has that. There's a lot of people who have a bunch of talent, but because of who knows, they don't have their foster kids, they got a bunch of stuff, different things going on in life, that those things have to take a backbone. Mm-hmm. So I think one of those things, it's one of the things you really got to be very grateful about, being able to nurture that in a way and come into that fruition eventually, when there's a lot of people who really don't have that opportunity sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we definitely have to be thankful for the opportunities that we do have, even if it's small. And the thing is that that's what people need to know too. Even if it's small and you might not have the same path as another person, but you still can arrive as long as you continue to move forward. Don't give up on your dream. I mean, it could be like 20 years down the line, but it still can happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's never impossible. I feel like it might take us a little bit longer to get this, especially even us just living up in the country. Like things trickle down to where we live, to any village in St. Paul.
Yeah.
It got there eventually, but it's still hey, and that didn't start our growth. It may have taken a little bit longer for us. But we still got where we want to be, and we still on our journey, and we're still pursuing what we want to pursue.
I think that we're the only one that put a timestamp on things. We're always the one in the rush.
That's exactly it. Because I might be turning 40 soon, and a lot of times people get terrified of that.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, I used to be terrified of it. No, as long as you're out here living your best life, or just pursuing something, you don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have everything I thought I would have it for you, but just being able to have a great mindset and be grateful to God and just thankful for the opportunity that still lie ahead of me. I think that's all you need in life. And you don't have to be in Hollywood. You don't have to be nothing. Whatever it is for you, the thing that you want to pursue, and it brings you joy, and you can take care of your family, your people, and yourself. Do that and pursue it all, everything, and just be grateful. It doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter how you look, it doesn't matter. Just do that, and I think that's one of the keys to enjoying a life, because at some point it's going to be up. That's going to be it. It's going to be our time. Yeah. So while we're here, just try to enjoy it the best we can and pursue whatever your heart desires.
And the other part is that I want to add to this is that sometimes of course, we don't know what's going to unfold in front of us, but we still, and I talked about dreaming big not long ago, a few minutes ago. But even when I interviewed this person, the girl that I told you, that the lady that's the stylist, the celebrity stylist, Nakia, and how she would watch those movies and see the stylists and stuff like that, she kind of had a vision of where she wanted to go, but never anywhere. And I've interviewed her for a couple hours or whatever. So I'm going to just share little bits and pieces. I don't like to tell other people's story, but never could she imagine that she would be, how do you go from sitting at home, watching a movie, seeing credits for someone and be like, I'd like to be, and ended up being the hairstylist for Tia Mowry and Beyonce. How in the world? You know what I'm saying? You think about stuff like that. How did I get here? How did I get here?
Dream, how did
Exactly. So, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just using her as an example because a lot of people think, you know what I'm saying? But you're thinking about, I want to do hair. And then next thing you know, I'm doing Beyonce's hair. I saw a lady online the other day and she was saying that she was gonna work with Cardi B, right? And so she just put that out in the atmosphere. The next year, and I don't think it was a year later, it probably was less time than that. She was on set. She created a wig for Cardi B or whatever like that. Now she has all this stuff going on. There's so many people out there. And I guess for me, I like to hear people's story. It gives hope. And you see how God move in people's lives. And that was the reason why I couldn't wait for us to have this moment, because I wanted people to see how you started from, hey, I'm going to pack up my car and I'm moving to California. And then next thing you know what I'm saying? And it was your drive and ambition. And then next thing you know, your break comes. I want to talk about that first break that you had. Go right on into it.
Man, so that first break happened. So I was working at a talent agency called ICM.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And I worked there for 8 years. I was working in the accounting department.
Yep.
And I was still writing. Matter of fact, I remember when you came over for your birthday.
30th birthday.
I remember that.
We ain't gonna talk about that trip, but 30th birthday.
Y'all will see some pictures. I got
no,
some
sir.
pictures. Y'all the
Listen, I'm still drunk. 10 years later.
That was a good night.
It was. Listen, the sun was up when we left that club. That was so funny. Yeah, so we're not going to talk about that right now.
Yeah,
I don't want people to know that.
We'll talk about that. We say that for the aftertalk. So I worked in this accounting department for like 8 years. I was still writing on the weekends, still like going to seminars and talks and going to networking events. And I remember telling myself like, I wanted my agency to hear about me from somebody else. Like I feel like everybody's in there trying, oh, can you read this? Can you read that? I was like, no, I want them to hear about me from one of their clients. So I think that'll make more of an impact. Mm-hmm. So eventually I somehow got in contact with a friend of mine named Jashika James. And we were talking one day. And I was telling her like how I got kind of personable with one of the clients, but I never told him I was a writer because I never wanted to cross that line.
Right.
So and she was just like, oh, you know what? I know him very well. Like, and she had a twin sister. I think her twin sister, Janika, was like, okay, I think Janika worked with them. Let me see if they can send an email and see if we can get you guys to meet up. So they did that. I met up with that writer. I said, oh, then he's like, okay, I heard you writer. Like, yeah, let's meet up for coffee one day. His name is Rob Greenberg. I said, okay, cool. So I met him for coffee and we were just talking and he was like, you got anything you want to send me? And I think I recently had wrote a Big Bang Theory spec script. Yes. And I had placed in the Austin Film Festival the year before. So I'm like, okay, well, I got a little traction with that. So I was like, yeah, I got this. And he was like, listen, I'm not going to read it, but I'll send it to my agent and you'll see what happens. Like, I was like, okay, cool. That's all I can ask for. So he sent it to his agent, which was a big agent at the time. And that agent sent it to a newer agent that just got promoted. And she read it. She liked it. She's like, okay, this is kind of cool. Do you have a pilot? And I was like, well, give me a couple weeks. I was just in the middle of writing one. And it was like, but I still had to tweak it a little bit. So I tweaked it a little bit. And maybe like a week or two later, I was like, oh, here it is. She's like, okay, cool. She read it and she's like, yeah, okay, I like this. All right, cool. We're gonna start sending you out. I was like, oh, okay. And mind you, this is all after like 8 years of just like head down working. Mm-hmm. Course you haven't. I'm like, okay, am I just gonna be stuck at this desk the rest of my life? I don't know. You just never know. But you know what? Just be persistent and keep going. So all of this happened. So I'm working 8 years, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're gonna start sending you out. Like, I'm like, oh, okay. So and they did, and I started getting meetings and everything like that. And this is all at the big. Like, she read my stuff at the beginning of 2014, and in January, and I got staffed in July of that same year. After a couple of meetings, like I said, Terrell Lawrence, Greg Malins ended up hiring me, and it was really cool. They did it really cool. Like, I love it. She actually, my agent, like, she didn't tell me at first. I went to lunch, and she called myself, and she was like, "Oh, are you in the building?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, okay. I just want to make sure you were here." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that like I was built about staffing or anything. So I came back after lunch. She comes down. She's like, hey, Terrell, are you available next week for so-and-so? I'm like, yeah. She's like, because you got stopped. And then people coming from all around the corner. They're recording it. Oh. And like, they're cheering for me. And I was like, what? So like all my bosses and stuff.
That was so good. They
made a moment out of it. And I will never forget it for my life. I know there's still a video out there somewhere. I gotta try to find it again. But yeah, so like that was a whole moment. I literally was starting that. I think I got that news like that Thursday, and I was literally starting to work that next Monday. So I had to quit immediately. I had to do all that stuff, and it was one of the best moments I will ever remember. So that following week, I started my new job, and it was awesome. It was a whole brand new world. I'm like, yo, I've been fighting for this for a very long time. I've wanted this for a very long time. Here
Yes.
it is. And I was happy. It
And
was
you
great.
deserved it.
It was awesome. I learned a lot and I grew a lot. Then after that show, I went to NBC show with Bill Lawrence. He brought me onto that tribe, and that was really very cool too. Like every experience is so different, every room is so different, and you learn something new every single time.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and that was actually a live show, so it was like how we produced it, and the energy of the show was very different from my first one, and it was a very good experience to have that as well. And that was really dope. But then, come to find out, that show was canceled.
Was this Undateable?
That was Undateable.
Yep. Okay. Okay. I remember.
After the season, we were like, okay, we might be brought back, and we're like, okay, sitting up here and prayer hands and waiting to hear back, and they canceled it. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. Well, I was like, okay, well, that's cool, that's okay. Okay, that's okay. I got 2 shows under my belt. Let's go there, try to get some more work. Man, so this is where the fun starts to happen.
I feel a roller coaster. I feel some turbulence.
It's like, okay, deep.
I feel the pressure.
Yeah, man, listen. So that was in 2015. They canceled that show. So I'm taking meetings and I'm just not getting anything. I'm getting no work. I'm getting no traction. I had a little bit of traction for a little bit. People would love to meet me and stuff like that, but I just didn't get any work. So, and when I was like, okay, well, eventually, there's gonna be a meeting that's gonna change things any minute now. Like I said, the fashion your seatbelt sign is on. Okay, we put that on.
Right.
In a minute, this light's gonna turn off, and everything's gonna be fine. Man, during that period, I did not find work for 5 years.
Wow.
Of course, all of the money I had dried up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I still really want to do this. I got to just find ways to survive. So I started taking a bunch of different jobs. Man, I had so many jobs. I worked in women's shoes in Bloomingdale's. Mm-hmm. I was like basically a black Al Bundy. I was like, not
Al Bundy.
I was a black Al Bundy. I'm like, okay. You want some shoes? Sure. I'm like, I was like, because like the only way you can make money in that place, like you gotta be a salesman. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't care. But so I had a negative attitude. Well, no, I didn't have a negative attitude.
It wasn't what you wanted to do, and you felt like you had come so far. And
exactly.
Man, I did this in high school, or say college to make extra money. I'm too old for this. Yes. Not in a bad way, but it's like I've come so far, and I feel like I've just went back like 20 years.
That's exactly it. And like, okay, and like I moved over here. I'm missing time with my family. I'm very close to my family, and like I moved here to be working in Bloomingdale's women's shoes. What? So I quit that job eventually because I made no money. I actually quit that job to go on unemployment because I made more money on unemployment working at that job. So I was like, okay, how long did you stay here to get unemployment? Okay, good. So as soon as I was like, let me go on unemployment because this is horrible. Then I started like temping at a bunch of different jobs. I think I started driving for Amazon. I started driving for Postmates and DoorDash. And then one of the last jobs I had was like doing an Amazon shopping kind of thing where like you like do online orders for Amazon. And this is all over a span of 5 years. A bunch of different jobs, a bunch of different struggling. I had to end up moving out of my apartment. I ended up renting a room in the house for a little bit down in Inglewood. And I just felt like, oh man, I think it was like probably year 2 or 3 of not having any writing work. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yo, is this it for me? Like and it's crazy how like over the years, it's crazy even looking back and thinking about it now, honestly. Just how you don't even think about the writing of it all. You don't think, oh yeah, like you still have those kind of like, okay, any minute now I'm gonna be back on the writing thing. But at that point, I was just in survival mode. Like I don't have any money. The car is breaking down like crazy. I'm renting this room in the house. Grown man renting the room in the house. And you just looking for ways to survive. And
chasing your dreams. That's it. You're doing whatever's necessary.
Yeah, doing whatever's necessary. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most mentally draining things I've ever at that point that I've ever been in my life.
I know what you mean.
I struggled with myself. I lost faith in myself. I was mean to myself. I was mean to myself. Like, I'm not talented. I'm not this. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the. I beat myself down for a lot of that. And I questioned whether or not I was going to ever be able to beat that. I really did for several years. And then, eventually things started happening. But I remember at one of the lower points, I remember when my car was about to be repossessed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. No, my car was repossessed. And luckily I had a lot of I've been blessed with a lot of good friends over here.
Yeah.
Who are still working, and some of them I reached out to, and they really did help me. And they really did make it easy for me to still be here, honestly, to this day.
They understood what it took to be there.
Did.
Yeah.
They did. But then I remember I remember my car got repossessed, and I remember I had to call my friends like, I'm so sorry. And that this was me of course we talked earlier about having a hard time asking for help and things like that. And I was like, look, I really need your help. It broke me to have to, really be humbled in that way to do that. And they were like, you know what, I get it. Like you said, they understood exactly what it is, and they really did believe in my talents and what I was worth. And like, you know what, I'm going to help you. And a lot of course, I wouldn't go for them for every single thing, but when I needed big stuff that came up that I couldn't, where I had no other choice. Right. That's when I would hit them. And to this day, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned about, never be afraid to ask for help. My battery I was at a grocery store in downtown LA. I was at a grocery store. My battery died in my car, and I didn't have any jumper cables. And I was like, oh God! I don't want to go up to people and ask them for jumper cables. I'm pretty sure I didn't have AAA at the time. Pretty sure it lapsed. I barely had any money. I'm just barely holding on. Barely holding. Yeah. It was the same with robbing Peter to pay Paul. I was robbing Paul to pay whoever else. I'm robbing him. I'm like, listen, what I got to do to get through this and survive? And I think one of the biggest things I learned doing that thing, I say, you know what? The thing about being broke is just buying time. That's your biggest thing. Anyway I can buy, okay, this month, I won't pay the bill this month. I'm going to push that one back this one. Okay, I can't push that one back anymore, so I got to pay that one. Mm-hmm. You got to pay this one. Oh my gosh, it was always a mental warfare.
I understand.
So going back to me realize I need to ask for help. So I was at this grocery store, battery died, didn't want to ask somebody for help. And somehow I walked by this homeless guy. And I genuinely can't remember how the conversation started, but I remember I just ended up telling him, oh yeah, my car is stuck down there. I don't have a jumper cables. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. He literally started going to everybody. Do you have jumper cables? Do you have jumper cables? Do you have jumper cables? And I'm sitting here watching this homeless guy. I'm like, yo, I don't have no idea what this man's day was like. He could be going through the roughest period, being homeless and everything, but yet here he is on my behalf asking people, do you have jumper cables? Do you have jumper cables? Wow. And eventually we did find someone. I was like, I will never forget. I will never, ever, ever forget that. This man, with God knows what's going on in his life. Here I am. Yeah, I'm having a tough time, but probably nothing compared to what he's going through.
He set aside what he was going through to help somebody else in their time of need.
Exactly. And I will never forget that. So now I know that's why it's one of my biggest things. So whenever if I can help anybody in any way,
yes, absolutely,
I will do that, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and especially when you're going through those moments where you second guess everything, you're doubting yourself, you're praying, and you literally feel your prayers aren't being answered. Now, I actually wrote a script about, especially growing up religion. We grew up very religious, and you feel like
it's a foundation.
It's a foundation, and I felt like I was going through a period of my life where none of my prayers were being answered. So what will I do when my prayers aren't being answered? You just go to survival mode. Yep. And I wrote a script about it, and it was one of the biggest battles in my life I had to go through mentally. It was more so mentally than anything. I remember just waking up every morning oh God, let me see, is my account a negative? If it was a negative, okay, how much DoorDash I gotta do? Do I have enough gas to get put this money in here?
Yes.
It was a lot.
I understand.
It was a lot, and this went on for 5 years, and honestly, things did not start to turn around for me until actually probably a little before COVID, but it was COVID. when COVID came, financially, it helped me in a lot of ways because that's when they like started putting pause and paying rent. I was like, oh wait, I don't have to pay rent on time. I can hold off, and y'all ain't missing.
Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
You know what? Like, I'm so sorry. I hate it. I hated seeing people, dying from it and being sick from it.
Yeah.
But financially, that financial part of it, that's when things actually started turning around for me.
Right.
Once COVID happened, because I was like, oh, I don't have to pay rent. Y'all gonna give me a little more time. So I'll tell you, that's the best one.
Thank you, God.
You can thank you, God. My fasten seatbelt, my light's still on. I still got my belt on, but okay, the turbulence ain't as rocky as it was.
Yeah. I can handle this.
Right. So, and like, it's crazy because like I think during that period, so all that financial stuff started to happen. Then at the end of it, I started working with a writing partner because he was going through his own thing too. He had like me and him were on that show too, Undateable too, and he hadn't worked since then either. So we were like, okay, well, you and I both struggling. Let's see if we can bring out our sources together and see what happens. And so we started writing right at the end of COVID, and then what happened after that? Shortly after that, I did a freelance for Disney Channel out of the blue because I think I had a showrunner meeting that year before, a couple months before, but I didn't get the job. But the showrunner remembered me. She remembered liking me, my sample. So she brought me on with the freelance, and I did that. And then shortly after that, me and my writing partner went on to get hired at an HBO Max show. And then right after that, we got hired for The Neighborhood on CBS.
Wow.
So things turned around almost like overnight, almost overnight in a way, like after a while. But the thing is, when I look back at that period, as tough as that was, that's why it humbled me so much. I learned so much about myself. I realized a lot about my self-hatred and blah, blah, blah. And I've worked through that, and like having appreciation for, it's just a lot, but like having appreciation for like my upbringing, like my Black culture. Cause I think I always kind of had an issue with that in a way, in certain regards. And just making sure I wanted to like really promote and show us so much love, because I think it's so important, because there's some things that I just realized through that period and going through those tough times. Like, it opened my eyes in a lot of ways, that I feel like a lot of times that we're just so subconsciously doing things. And I think with the whole George Floyd of it all, I think like, there was a lot that happened during that period too, and seeing the bias in society and all the systemic issues of this country.
The division.
All of it. So like there was so much going on that I took it all in and I internalized it. And I really do feel like it made me a much better person and give me a much better perspective of life and the different things that we all go through as human beings, and how we're not that different. Yes, we do have a lot of different. We have different cultures and all that, but we honestly are not that different as we think. There's a lot of people who's out there struggling and things like that too. But at the same time, there are a lot of cultural things in this country that I feel like, kind of wasn't biased to us. We did not have a head start like a lot of people. We were starting from way, way, way back beyond the line, especially being from the South. Yeah. And then using all of that and then finding self-love and love for everybody and love for Black culture specifically. I feel like all of that was wrapped into my journey. Yeah. And I think it's now translating into my art. And like I say, I don't just write toward us and Black people, but like I really want to make sure we focus on that and show us love, because I think for a long time we haven't shown, a lot of us haven't shown ourselves that love, and I want to make sure we all feel it in the best way we can. Yeah. And everybody does. I'm not just saying, only Black people deserve to be loved, because that's not what I'm saying. No. Especially Black people in this country, we deserve that love, because we were told we were ugly and this and that for so long.
That we're lazy, that we're not enough.
All of that. And I don't even know how that necessarily got into the story, but I'm telling you, there's something about that period just opened my eyes to a lot more of reality and what it is, while still holding a lot of love. Like I didn't lose my smile. Like it got tough to smile sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of growth, and that period was so necessary for me personally. I needed that. I needed it. And I'm actually very grateful for that period. Because I think that's where, when you're in that fire, when you're going through those tough times, that will show you exactly how strong. Like, you don't really know how strong you are until you're weak. Yeah. So sometimes, you know what I mean? And I think that was that period for me. And I'm grateful. I'm very grateful.
This has been the absolutely most beautiful story that I've heard. And I feel like, listen, I feel like every time I get on this screen with people, it's so, okay. So I just told someone the other day, when I'm on the opposite side, like when I'm on your side of the screen, it's harder for me. I have anxiety and
I know.
and
See,
it's
I'm falling as well a little bit.
Come on now. But I have anxiety and I go through a whole lot. But when I'm on this side of the screen, I am, not to say that, I'm in control, but it's almost like you kind of control the narrative. You know where you want it to go. I'm more comfortable on this side. And I felt like I needed to see who I was, you know what I'm saying, my strength and where my weakness is. And so I'm happier on this side of the screen, which shows that maybe this is what God is showing me, where I'm supposed to be, my path, you know?
Yeah.
And so listening to you tell your story and just opening up and being vulnerable and sharing, this is going to help so many people, because it's hard. It is. And I feel like today you bless me, because for the last 4 years, when I lost my job, I don't know, but I'm so tired. I'm ready for God to change the story, right? I'm ready to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? But you know what? I went through something very similar. When I lost my job, it was tough, and I had to start over, and I had to. I started to figure out who I was, started to see who I really was, because all of those years, you were doing what you wanted to do. Well, I was doing what I wanted to do, and I was making the money that I wanted to make, and I felt like I had found success. And then it was just like that. It wasn't, saying, oh, those things are great, but I feel like I went through a long period of struggle, like trying to figure it out, having to place my hand into God's hand and trust him like I had never trusted him before. And that was some turbulence. When I say that, I'm like, God, I can't breathe. It was tough, and stuff. And there was those days that I had to cry out to God and say, and I mean, this was like recently, like just cry out to God and say that I was tired, like tired, because I had never been at that point. And sometimes I just felt like maybe I, wasn't as strong as I thought that I was, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. And it's just like, but every day I continue to get up and I continue to keep going regardless of what, because no matter what happens, we can't just stop. We don't get to lay still and do nothing. We have to continue to create. And it's like,
and that's your strength right there. That's your strength. That's your strength. Being able to get back up when you don't feel like it, when your mind is telling you can't. That getting back up, that's the strength. Because I always tell people, for me, what it felt like for me going through some of those periods is like, I literally felt like I was in a pool drowning. And the harder I fought to get to the surface to breathe, the deeper I sunk in this pool. That's exactly what I'm trying. Like, please, I just need to get up, catch my breath. Please let me catch my breath. And the harder I try to get to that surface to breathe, man, I started sinking. I'm like, that thing was rough for me. It was rough.
It was. But you know how much that you're going to be able to create just from this period of time. Listen, I see a whole movie in there. I just saw somebody trapped in a hole trying to get out of it and keep falling back down. You know what I'm saying? There's so much in there. And I guess when we're in those storms, when we're in those times or during those periods, it's so hard. We can't see anything. Only thing we're focused on is what we're going through. And it's not until we come out of it, that's when we see the beauty of it. And like, oh God, that's what you were created. I don't like the way you did it. Did it have to go that way?
We just taking the elevator right there.
Exactly.
The rough side of the mountain.
Oh my God, yes, the rough side of the mountain.
The old gospel songs started hitting filters and stuff. Like, I'm like, man.
So this is what the rough side was like.
That's what the rough side, though. That's what that song was talking about.
Yes.
Now I understand a little more what's going on.
So this is what you mean when 40 years in the wilderness. Jesus Christ.
Exactly. But you know what I also thought about too, like just taking an introspect back is like that was a moment for us. And of course I think there's gonna be ups and downs as we continue to grow and live.
Hills and valleys.
But then I thought about there are some people who their whole life is survival mode, man.
Yeah.
They are born and they die in survival mode. I couldn't imagine. Being born into like something you automatically, like, all right, you gotta learn to survive out the gate. And some people never are able to build out of that. Some are. And I thank God for people who are able to do that. But like I said, as bad as my situation was, I'm pretty sure there's people who had it like a million times worse.
Yeah.
I still have people able to help me and give me money to help me out. You know what I mean? Of course, I didn't go to them all the time, but I had that. Not everybody has that. Some people don't have no kind of safety net, no nothing. They're just out here straight surviving. So as hard as that was for me, I know there's out there people that like had it way worse.
Do you think that they don't have anybody, or they just don't want to ask? Maybe maybe
it's
pride. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Maybe don't want to ask. Maybe sometimes that we push people away and then we don't have anybody to fall back on. And then sometimes you never know. You could probably call on someone, but you just don't, because you're like, I don't want to be a problem. Or, you know, saying sometimes we get in our field, and I can't say this is somebody else's story. I can't say that. But, you know, saying there's so many what ifs to that.
That's true. That's a very good point. 'Cause I know, like at that point where the people I did reach out to, I had cultivated a really good relationship with them, and I think they knew that I'm not just somebody who's going to try to use them, because like I really do people I love and I really care about, and I think that made me a little more comfortable asking them. But yeah, you're right. I think it could be a little bit of both of that. Like, you know, some people that they just ask for help, it wouldn't be as tough. But then I think there are some people who maybe don't, for whatever reason. Maybe they burn too many bridges. Maybe people don't want to help them anymore. Right. They're at a point where maybe they change. But like you said, there's a lot of what ifs to that scenario.
Or in their mind, because you know, a lot of times people, when you're up and you have everything, and you know, people see you like they got this and that or whatever, and then when you don't have that anymore, then you become embarrassed or fearful or don't want, or ashamed and don't want to talk about it or let people know that you're struggling, because all they saw was you up and stuff like that. And then you know, they're going to talk and you don't want to be judged. But it doesn't even matter what people say or think, because you know what I'm saying? Not at all.
And that's for me, like, even me talking to you right now about this, I'm a very private person.
Me too.
Like, I can tell. But you know what? And like, but it's not until you really able to assess all that you've been through, and you're able to take a look back and see where you grew from and all that stuff. Like, okay, I can see why. You can kind of see and appreciate why you went through it, or sometimes even still going through it and still being able to, like, you know what, this is what it is, being real and honest. And I think last time I was thinking about the song, the Mary J. Blige song, like life can be only what you make it. When you're feeling down, you should never fake it. Like, if it's one thing, like, allow yourself to feel that. Even first of all, start admitting to yourself, like, no, this is not where I want to be. I'm hurting now. And being able to, first of all, admit it to yourself, and then being able to like express that to people outside, your friends and your loved ones. Because when it first started happening, I was telling nobody I was struggling. I'm like, okay, well, you know, because like, not that I like had this image of like, oh yeah, I moved to LA and you're on the show and you're doing good. So I don't want people to know that, oh, no, I am not that at all.
Did you feel like you failed yourself?
I did. I feel like I failed myself. I feel like I failed my family. I feel like I moved over here to make my family life better. And now here I am asking, like, can I borrow some money because I need this is due. Now I need help from you guys. But like my initial plan was to help you guys, but now y'all helping me. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow too. That was a very hard pill for me to swallow. Because I'm really big on taking care of, looking out for my people, and taking care of my mom, and if my brother and my sister needed help, especially, or any of my friends. And I was on the other end of that. Now I was the one that needed the help,
right? And
that was hard. I was definitely the borrower, not the lender. At that point, as they say in the old church. I'm like, take you from the lender to the borrower, the borrower to the lender. I turned from the lender to the borrower, like a real point.
You know what? I can identify with everything that you're saying. I'm honestly feeling like I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and you're talking to. It's like, gosh, are you living my life? Like I was in that exact same place, and it was so hard for me having to ask my friends or my family for help, and even like starting over and starting a business. There's so much that you have to pour into it, and there's always like fees and money and stuff that like their hands are out and stuff like that. And every time I go to that next level, there's another level, buddy, that I need to be able to produce. And it's just like, man, that's so crazy. And I felt like people didn't understand, what that was like, and I felt like people were just looking at me like, or waiting for me to fail. But then I got to a point where I don't care what people are thinking. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't care what
Yeah.
people are thinking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just got to continue to trust God and allow Him to
Yeah.
move in my life and do whatever it is that He needs to do. Because there's a
Yeah.
reason why we had to walk through those seasons. And also, if you're the
Absolutely.
person like, I feel like for me, and I can't say this for you, my trust was in myself, in my own ability, and what I
Yeah.
could do. So, and the idea of me wanting to being able to take care of my family and give back and do all those things or whatever like that, give it in place. What if God didn't intend for me? Because at some point you feel like you're taking His place. And like, so if
Yeah.
I take all of that away from you, what now? You know what I'm saying? Now
Yeah.
they have to rely on Him, but you
Yeah.
also have to rely on Him as well, because at some point
Yeah.
I felt like I got caught in my own merit and felt like I could do things on my own, or maybe no, I never forget where it was coming from now. Absolutely not. I never forgot where it came from, but it was just like I wasn't putting all of my trust in Him, you know, until I had to. And then it was just like, good God. But I felt like those moments was for me to want to see myself and to also let go
Absolutely.
of all of those things that I did on myself, because I built something that was not on God's foundation, on the
Yeah.
foundation that I created on my own. You know, and
Yeah.
God's like, whoosh, you don't
Yeah.
need that anymore. Like,
Right.
this is not what I have for you. We're gonna change this up, you know, and
Right.
everything, all of
Right.
a sudden you wake up and everything is gone. And it's like, what
Yep.
now? I have to go through this rubble and figure
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
out and stuff, and you know, and just start all over. And that was the hardest part in saying that. And I
Yeah.
always keep saying this, I want to trust God I want to put my trust God with my eyes closed. That's the hardest thing that I ever had to do. Now I don't want to say it anymore. No, you're just
Yeah.
kidding. Like, God, I take it back. I'm not doing that again. No,
No,
just
hey,
kidding. I'm just
trust
kidding.
me.
But
Trust me.
it was so hard to like just
Yeah.
let go and just be like, because we've lived our lives a certain way, the way that society has taught us, you know, same thing, you know, we ought to do this and we ought to do that. And the thing is that just like you say, God bring those moments where he restored you and He was giving you more, and you were able to come out at this point in your life or whatever. And I feel like even during the hard times of my life, God, you know, and it was hard now because it was hard because of the life that I used to live. You know what I'm saying? There was no court-sized basketball tickets. There was no
Yeah.
$300 meals. There were no $40 lunches. There was no get up and go when you want to go. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, whatever it is. Definitely there was no more shopping. So it was no more of the life that I had created on my own, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I was creating a mess and I felt like God wanted to create something greater in me. And
Yeah.
when I released from what I was trying to hold on so tightly to, when I
Right.
opened my hand and release, I felt like I was releasing so that God could give me back what He wanted me to have, which was a
Yeah.
lot more, because a lot of times we see what we used to have and like, well, I was making this amount of money, and you know what I'm saying, and we hold on to that image and we're trying to get back to that, and it's like,
Yeah.
let that go and go to where it is that God has for you, because I'm more certain that it's way more than what you could have created on your own or what you had in the past. I think it's an opening
Yeah.
door to a new beginning when we trust God, but we have to go through that turbulence. We have to go through that
Yeah.
phase where God refines us and
Yeah.
create us something new in us, you know. And then just like in the Bible, it says, God can't. Okay, hold on a second, because I'm about to mess up the scripture. God won't pour new wine into old wineskin. I can't take that old part of you and pour something new into you. I need to shed this all off so that I can create
Absolutely.
something new. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Purify. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel
Absolutely.
like we had to go through all of that, even though it hurt. Like, it hurt like hell. Now it did.
Oh
It hurt
no!
like hell.
Listen,
No.
listen. We listen. We here. We are here. We are here.
Like,
Telling
God,
you.
what the worst? Some days I felt like I was crazy. Like it was like so confused. Like, am I doing, like, some days I felt like, okay, I'm on the right path. Then next thing you know, oh, this might not be the right path. Like, what in the world's going on? Like, God help me. Like,
Nope.
you know, and
Because
so yeah,
yeah.
it was tough, man. It was tough.
Yeah, it is. And like I always think about it, like you were that's saying like you want to make God laugh, tell me your plans.
Yeah.
Because I remember before that show that I was on that got canceled now, then for 5 years. I was like in the process, like, oh, I'm thinking about buying a house. I'm gonna start taking some like buying housing classes, just all make the right thing. And then God was like, oh, okay, all right, that's your plan. Okay, hold on for a second. show got canceled. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, well, that's out the window. And I think a lot of times too is like in those moments, I just sum it up to like survival mode moments. Like that's when we really, really, really start to learn what God is all about, and what He's instilled in us, how strong He's made us. And I think that's when we start to depend on Him more. I think because I think it's one of the things you're absolutely right. We start to like, oh, this is my plan. This was not your plan. This was my plan. That I was going down. That I thought I would.
Yeah.
But not realize, of course, if we had the choice, like, okay, you can either continue making good money or go through this rough patch, but you're gonna learn a lot more. It's gonna make you better.
Yeah.
Which one you gonna choose? Of course, when you're like, I want my money. Can't send me
Yeah,
the money.
exactly.
But he was like, no, you gotta go through this and to learn this stuff about life, learn about yourself, learn about the world, learn about just human beings in general. And I think there's probably no better way to do that. Sometimes in survival mode and making mistakes and learning from mistakes. And I don't know, there's a saying that Nipsey Hussle had that I think I got on my Instagram. Like, because when you're in survival mode, you ain't got time. Oh yeah, I'm gonna invest money and just like down the road I can reap the benefits. You live in day to day.
Yes.
You literally have to be like, okay, what's today gonna be like? Okay, like, so what kind of bill can I push off? What do I need to stop from getting cut off?
Okay, this bill due today. Okay, how am I gonna pay this bill today?
Oh, exactly. Going and checking the cash. I had like 5 checking the cash at one point. Like,
Wow, yeah.
Man, I got like all stuck up in that system. Like all of that.
Yeah.
So for a lot of that survival mode stuff, it really just makes you realize that, you know what? Take everything a step by step, day by day. And what's that saying about like, do not worry about the worries of tomorrow, for tomorrow worries of their own.
Yep.
I think it's this thing that was one of the biggest things I could kind of learn. Like, you know what? Take it step by step, day by day. Realize you don't know everything. You always got something you can learn. Always humble yourself. Even if you think you're a shy, good person, blah, 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 there's always something you can learn about people, about yourself. And just learn that, grow from that. And I will teach you that as long as you willing to pay attention. I will teach you that, and I will take you further places than you could do you ever thought you could.
Yes. Listen, you know what? I think that for me, it was you remember when we were in elementary school, Flannersville Elementary, and we used to sing that song, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I thought you talking about
No, not that song. I remember that song, but no, He's got the whole world in His hands. And I think about that, and I keep thinking about every struggle, every hardship, every time that something was due, every time a bill was due, and I was just like, and saying, if God has everything, He got the whole world in His hand, then all of this has to be planned. God knows that I would be here in this situation. That means that God has a way out for me. I have to just rely and trust on Him and know that He has everything under His control, everything under His control. And God would not fail me. God would do just like that promise that He made to me, that He would never leave nor forsake me, and that He was my provider. And I had to continue to remind myself who He was, what He promised me, and hold on to that. And that was the whole part that got me out. And so when He kept saying every time I was sued, every time I was in trouble, I kept saying, because I always felt like it was supposed to go this way, or how am I going to get through this? And I had to stop and say, God has everything in His hand, everything. Though He knows what this outcome is going to be. He's not going to leave me here or whatever. And even if things go bad, like, you know what? It's just like, okay, so just because this happened in my life, this is not the end of it. I know this thing's going to be sweeter days are coming. You know what I'm saying? It might taste bitter now, but sweeter days are coming. But dang, it sure is better though. God, it sure is better.
I'm fucking on orange peel skin like that. Ain't no juice, ain't no sugar on it. This is nothing but straight bitter.
Yeah, gosh, I remember I remember when I was in grad school, and I can't remember. Okay, so I'm gonna have to think really good. But I remember there was a time where I didn't even have. I had lost my job. This was like 2005 or something like that. And I had. I was out. I was out on an injury or whatever, and I was out on a injury, and I didn't go back to work, and I had to have like a surgery. Whatever. This was like a really bad situation or whatever. And so I remember losing my apartment. and I moved back home, but I was in grad school at the same time. So it was like, okay, what am I going to do? But I was so determined that I would end up finishing school, whatever. And I would stay at my sister's house in Columbia. So you know how far Columbia is from Greenville. And I would drive back and forth to go to classes or whatever. And I remember I didn't have
every day or
was I going every night or was I going like 3 or 4 days a week? It was almost like maybe 4 days a week. And sometimes I had to meet with a group or whatever, like on Sundays and stuff. And sometimes I didn't have money for gas, or sometimes I couldn't afford a hotel. And I actually, at the time, so I was homeless, no home, driving from my sister's house or going back to my parents' house, was Georgetown, which was 4 hours away.
Was even worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was driving back and forth. And whenever I didn't have, I had this Dodge Durango, right? All of my clothes was in the back of that car. Everything that I have in the back of that car. And I was just basically living out of my car, whatever. Sometimes I would be able to get a hotel, and sometimes I had to drive back, and sometimes I didn't even have any place to go, like no food, no money, no nothing. And I remember calling a friend. Listen, he didn't even know, like he had no clue. We were best friends in high school. And so I called Dave. He had just moved to Greenville because he had got a job. He was working as an engineer or whatever like that. And he was like, yeah, man, you can stay here or whatever. And I would sleep on his floor, and then I would get up early in the morning and then I would leave because he had to be at work early in the morning, and I would go to school and do my schoolwork and until my class wasn't until 6 p.m. And so I had all day I would do whatever I need to do, figure things out but when you're determined to make it, you go into that survival mode. And honestly, I don't even think he knew until way after I graduated college. All them times I slept on his floor, he had no idea that he was helping me. All he just says is my door is open. Like, sure, saying whenever I called him, he'd be like, yeah, that's fine or whatever. And it's just like God places people in our path, good people in our path that, knowing that you could go someplace and be safe and know that like you're okay. Like, and that's how I felt, because I knew like he was always my brother, and so I knew I could count on him. If I needed something, he would do whatever. But he had no idea whatsoever. He just like, yeah, you can.
Yeah. It's so beautiful that, because how like if it was like some kind of like a messy person, they're like, okay, what's going on? They would ask questions when I get up in business. But for him to like, he's like, no question, I'm just gonna be here for you. No question asked. I don't gotta know what's going on. That shows a lot about his character too, and that's a blessing. That's a blessing if you can be able to surround yourself with people like that. Shout out Dave. Come on, Dave.
Exactly.
Dave Campbell, right? Come on, Dave. Shout out Dave Campbell. That's awesome. Awesome.
I think that it's so good that we have, like, for me, I have friends that I've grown up with that I know that if I needed them, that they would always show up in my life. And I always said, I hope that I'm that same type of friend to them, knowing that they ever need something. So while you were telling this story or whatever, and I don't know our time frame, because I definitely went through a whole process of life being hard.
You might have been in the trenches around the same time.
Yes, but the thing is, I honestly, let me tell you something, we've been so close over the years, and I know that every time that I've called you and I need you, like, Terrell, hey, I need a contact for this, or I need a contact for that, or, so do you know somebody, what I'm saying? I always feel like, we grew up together, and the love is just so different, because people don't have those type of friends in their life, or, because we lived in a community that was just a little bit more closer, And so I feel like if there's anything that you ever need and I got it, you got it. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got it. Like, with no questions asked. Like, you can ask me for anything. You know what I'm saying? I always try to give back to people, especially the people that means a lot to me, or the people that's been a part of my life, a part of my journey, listen, I understand what that struggle was like. You know what I'm saying? I can definitely relate.
Yeah.
So, with no question asked, if there's anything that I could ever do, like, don't ever hesitate. Don't ever hesitate.
And you already know the exact same. It's reciprocated. Trust and believe.
Yes. I believe it. I believe it.
Absolutely. Because I'm telling you, there's something like this. There's no way you can go through all of that, God showed you so much and revealed so much to you, and you can still just go back to being that person. Like, okay, I was going back to be the person I was before that. Like, nah.
No,
like,
absolutely.
I mean, I was always about helping people, but it's a whole nother level right now.
Yes.
or after like kind of reaching, I guess could be seen as my rock bottom or whatever it is. And just knowing how it is to struggle and like the battle of the mind, it's hard. Like I don't know if I ever realized how hard it was. Because I remember like I put my brother business out there. And my brother went to some stuff and he had a really hard time. Like, and I never knew what that was like. I still can't compare to what some of the things my brother went through.
Yeah.
But just know, like when we all go through those patches sometimes, and if we can be there as best we can for people, for one another, let's do that. Let's look out. We gotta look out for one another.
Absolutely.
We all can use that love and that support. Even sometimes we don't even know it. We don't even know it. We don't have to know all each other business, all that stuff.
No, it doesn't take all that. You don't need to give me a story because honestly, my mindset is more of if someone tells me like I had this. And not even a friend. She wasn't a friend, but someone that I knew. And there was like this bad storm that had hit their city or whatever, and everything was like shut down. And I knew it was bad because I was closing the deal, and the bank was in that same state, in that same area. And well, it wasn't that state, but it was in that same area where the storm had hit, and it affected everyone. And so we couldn't even close on the deal. That means that I couldn't get paid until their lights came back on, you know what I'm saying? The process to finish. So it was just like, hey, I'm gonna have to wait a week or so out to just get my money. But anyway, at the time, so I knew that if it was that bad, then that means that it was bad for them, and it would have been bad for them financially because no one was working. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I immediately, and you know what, I reached out and I said, hey, listen, God, you had me to sow the seed or whatever like that. And it wasn't nothing like huge, you know, some of thousands of dollars or anything like that. Right. But it was just like, I knew what was going on and I wanted to sow a seed because you already know, like, if this is going on in the world and this person is in that place or whatever, then there's something wrong. And there's nothing wrong with giving because you don't know what their circumstance, but like, hey, I know something, you know what I'm saying? Let me sow the seed. And even to a point where she had just said, and this is what she said when I sowed the seed, she said, she's like, one of her coworkers was going through something that was really bad, and she had split her whatever she had with the coworker, and she didn't have anything, really didn't have a place to give from. So me giving that seed to her was like her blessing coming back. When I just said that, you know what I'm saying, I don't want to hear the coworker's business, but allow me to get her information. I want to sow a seed to. I didn't know this lady. I barely didn't even know her name or whatever the day. God just showed up that day, and I sowed that seed. And no, she doesn't know me. You know what I'm saying? And never will know who I am unless we cross paths in some kind of miraculous way or whatever. But it doesn't take a whole lot to know when people are struggling and that they need help. It's like it's obvious if we could just put that love out there like that and just be able. Not saying we're supposed to be God and run around and just be doing, but sometimes God allow us to be aware of people's situation or circumstances. But then sometimes I find that people, like when God allows you to move and do things for people, I think that sometimes people come back and try to take advantage and think that you're a clutch from them. Now that part of God, and I'm like, God didn't tell me. No, let me consult with God first. Because you know when people are really just trying to get over or whatever. You feel it,
because to me, and I think I love that you just said it because it reminded me of the fact that like I'm way more sensitive to like what people around me are going through.
Yes.
Especially like I think we all tend to hang around kind of similar people, like, you know, very strong, they suffer in silence and they don't say much. So like I just always try to make sure I pick up on signs that they might be going through something and I check in. I'm like, good. Because like there's always signs that someone might be going through something. If you just really pay attention, especially for those who don't like to talk about their business, they're putting a brave face. Oh yeah, everything's great. But if you really, especially people you love and you hang around and you like really, you know, hang tight with, you notice a change in some kind of the demeanor sometimes. The pattern of speech. So being more and more sensitive to that and checking in on people, I think is another good thing to kind of be in tune with. And you just even thinking like, oh, yo, this person is in an area where things are turned upside down. I know this person will need my help. Let me check in. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think there's a lot of things that if we can, of course, like we always won't be in a place to help people financially or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes you just want, like, people just need to vent about something.
Yeah.
Want to be heard.
Or know that somebody want to be heard, want to be seen, or know that someone cares, because a lot of times they feel like they're alone.
They feel like they're by themselves. No one cares. So like being able to tap into that and check on people, I think it's very important. I think it's a great way to show love back to
yeah. One time I was, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say one time I was at church. I was sitting in church, right? And I can't remember if it was like a Wednesday service, but I can see myself like right now sitting in church, and I was sitting by some people. It was a Caucasian couple that was right beside me, and they were like, I knew something was wrong. I immediately knew something was wrong, and they were just crying and crying and crying, both husband and wife. So when it was offering time, and not to say everyone, put something in the offering basket, but most people do, even if it's $1 or something like that. And so they did, and they were just like, they cried the entire service. And I'm not one to carry cash. I was never a person that carried cash, but somehow I had this money in my wallet. And it always seemed like when I had money in my wallet, it always ended up being for somebody else. Never fails, because I'm not a cash carrying person. Right. And so I remember that I had some money in my wallet, and for some reason in my heart, I felt like they had some trouble or whatever. And sometimes the Holy Spirit will tell me what some people are going through, and sometimes I just kind of like sense, stuff. But at this time, the Holy Spirit didn't tell me. I didn't have any insight of what was going on. I'm glad, because I start to feel what people are feeling. But I knew something was wrong. And so I got the cash out of there. Like, again, totally strangers, never know those people, never see them again. And their keys, did they have keys that was right beside me? I think their keys was on the couch, on the chair, on the pew. And I took the money, slid it up underneath the keys. So when they pick up their keys, they had to get the money as well, too. I did it right before church was about to out. And I made sure I just went the opposite way. And just then you just want people to know that other people care, you know what I'm saying? And you don't have to go, you don't have to share your story. You don't have to give the thank you, give all praises to God, and just go on. You know what I'm saying? It's just love. And that's what we want to do. We want to love people and just be there for people, even with whatever it is that we can. One time I was at the Chinese restaurant, and this guy came in, and he was ordering some food, and he had all these coins, nothing but coins, and he was trying to count them off to pay for the food, right? And I was sitting there waiting for my food to come, and I was having a bad day. I had just left work, and I had a hard day, and I was so angry. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm watching this man count his money, change, trying to come up with the money he need or whatever. And the Chinese man was just so loud and ridiculous. And so I went up there, and I just paid for his food, and it came back, and he said, tell her thank you. And I started laughing so hard, like it's not necessary. It was so funny. But the man was appreciative, but the Chinese man was just a little out of control. But it was so funny. I'll never forget that. Tell her thank you. It was so funny, but you know what I'm saying? But I could tell that something was wrong. But sometimes we see people and they're struggling, and it's like, we know what that struggle feels like. We know we've been there. I've been there counting, trying to add up my groceries in my head before I get to make sure that I don't overspend. You know what I'm saying? I got $200 and you know what I'm saying? I can't go to 201 because this got to be with the taxes and everything. I can't go over. You know how that feels like when you scrape in your pocket. Hey, listen, I done went to the toll booth and didn't have no money. Of course, because I wasn't carrying cash, but I was out there 30 minutes trying to count some change out of my little thing. Finally came up with all the change that I needed. And the lady's like, oh, man, that man paid for you like 30 minutes ago. And I'm like, what? What did he pay for me like 30 minutes ago? Like, you know what I'm saying? But there's just... Exactly. And he didn't know my story nor my situation. He saw somebody pulled over and trying to figure it out. And that's all it takes. Like, we just have to be more aware of and a little bit more sensitive to what's going on around us.
That is so true, man. You just remind me, like, I took an old school one, like last year. Like, when the last time you ever seen somebody write a check? I went to like, okay, how much can I write this check over? Right? I'm like, okay, well, hopefully by the time this check come out, I'll have it covered. I was like, get like $25, $50 back from the grocery store. I'm like,
remember those days? Yeah,
man, yeah. I was doing this something like last year or maybe the year before. And but yeah, no, it's so funny because I went to a Chinese restaurant one day too. I remember there was this lady, she was buying food, I think for a whole family maybe. And I think she was trying to use like an EBT card, and it was just not going through.
Yeah.
And I just so happened to be at the time, I was blessed. Like I was like, okay, I was starting to level out. I started to breathe a little bit. And I was like, man, I've been in that position so many times where like I had to leave stuff because I ain't had enough for this or that. And I was like, you know what? Like I told the guys, like, I got it. And like it's just like you can just tell like there was such a huge burden lift that she was able to do this and get this food for them because they're hungry, whatever it is. And just knowing that we all out here together, We all out here struggling together. We all here trying to make it. We all out here like there's gonna be some days when we just don't got it. We need help. Every last one of us, like you were saying earlier, no matter how strong, how smart, whatever it is, we cannot do it on our own by ourselves.
No, not at all.
Some point, we all gonna need help, and we all need each other. And I love the fact that you were able to do that for that couple. And you didn't need praise. You don't need the go outside.
No, not at all.
It's just about really being there for each other, showing love, and keeping it moving.
Yeah, doing what we feel like God tells us in our heart to do, doing what's right to help people, whatever. We don't need, we don't need. And I try my best to help people in any way that I can. Like, listen, and I don't want to put this out here because then next thing you know, all these people to be nice to me. But when people are nice to me, I remember kindness because I remember times when people weren't kind to me. So if you're nice to me, I'm telling you, you'll gain favor with me, like real favor. And I don't mean like be nice to me and buy me anything or something like that. A simple smile, a hello, a check-in or something like that makes me feel like people care, and so sometimes I write people on my vision board that even if I don't have it now, that I want to go back and sow into those people. You know what I'm saying? I watch people every day. Like I watch people, I see them, you know what I'm saying? And I've heard stories, and especially when people share, and you know what I'm saying, I pray for them and ask God to help, or if I could refer someone, or if they have something going on, I'm going to try to help them in any way that I can. Not that I expect that back from people, but that's just who I am. I want to be able to help people in any capacity that I can. And so like if you find favor with me, trust and believe, I ain't never gonna forget them. I ain't never. And I always try to help because I remember when I was in college and I didn't have a computer. Like I feel like God had always placed people in my life to sow into me or pour into me. And so I feel like, especially during those hard times, those hard days, whatever, I never forget what people do. And so that makes me give more, want to help more people, because it's like, God placed people in my path for me. So that means that God has placed me in a path for someone else. And I want to make sure that I don't miss that. When I was in college, I remember not having a computer. And I know I done told the story so many times. And so I just happened to see that the computer lab had said that they were going to be shut down because they were changing over and getting new computers in the lab in the business building when I was in college. And so I went to one of my professors, Dr. Yates, and I said, hey, do you know what they're going to do with those old computers? And he says, no, why? What do you need? And I said, well, I don't have a computer and I work, and then I always have to go to the library when I get off, and then, library closes a certain time. And he was like, okay. He's like, no, I don't know. And he was like, well, just give me your telephone number and I'll find out or whatever. And so a week went by. And so he said to me, he called me on the phone one day and he said, hey, are you on campus? I said, no, my classes doesn't start till a little bit later or whatever. Or I didn't have class that day. I can't remember. And he said, well, pull up on the campus and back into the spot at the media building or whatever at a certain time. He said, I got a break during that time. And when I went there, not even knowing, he comes out with the computer and loaded into my car. And loaded into my car. And it's just like, I was so thankful. It was an old computer, but you know what the best part was? I didn't have to go to the library. I could do all of my work at home. I didn't have to hurry from work and try to do this or whatever like that. He made my life convenient, and he made my just being in school, he made it easier, a little bit easier for me. You know what I'm saying? And that's it right there. Sometimes we just got to take that pressure off of people and make things a little bit easier if we could, because the same time, like when we were in that struggle and couldn't breathe, and it's just like, sometimes we may reach out to people and, you know what I'm saying, and they help us. That just takes it allows us to breathe just a little bit more.
Yeah, honestly, and I ain't gonna say they act like right now everything's all figured out, but right now I feel like I think we're in a period at least where the seatbelt light is off. We're able to walk around the cabin a little bit, but we'll come back home.
Exactly.
And and I think you're right, and I think it's a series of ups and downs and lessons that we always go through as long as we're on this earth and learn and grow from. Relieving those pressures for people, for everybody, for ourselves. And because when you relieve that pressure, it allows you to do other things. So a lot of times when you're in those moments, you really can't think outside of it. You can't, it was hard for me to be creative and funny and talented. Like, I'm just literally in survival mode trying to survive. Mm-hmm. So being able to at least help someone, like getting that computer to you, help you be productive. You know what I mean? You didn't and if the lab shut down again, you were good because you still had your computer at the house.
On the weekends, I could be working from home and not
Exactly. And for him to do that for you, he probably didn't realize exactly how much you helped you, or what big of a huge help that was too. So
Yeah.
kudos to that, you know. And did you go to Clemson or USC?
No, I went to USC Upstate. Yeah, USC
Okay,
Upstate.
okay, that's what I was wondering. I remember you said Dave. I know Dave went to Clemson.
Yeah, he went to Clemson, and then he stayed in the
Yeah.
Upstate afterwards for a while.
Gotcha. And were those schools kind of close, or how far are they apart?
Clemson's probably like an hour. Yeah, about an hour from me. Yeah. So during the back then, well, this was after I graduated from college, but back then when I went to USC Upstate, and Al and Junior both went to Clemson or whatever like that, and I was still able to see them sometimes or whatever, and Dave or whatever like that, because we rolled up on the campus a couple of times, me and some friends, and went to some events or whatever like that. So I was still able to stay in contact with them, be in close contact with them while we were like, in school and like an hour apart. So yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah, it's always good to keep good people around you. You know what I'm saying? But they were always like family to me, and still is, like, you know. So I always looked them as my brothers, and I still do.
Yeah, because that's cool, because like, you know, even though we all went to shout out Choppy High. I was down in Columbia. I was with like Matt and Al, and who else was like we was hanging out with? I know that was the bulk of it right there. At USC and stuff. And like, we really were able to bond like outside of high school, and grow older together, and see each other, like, how our lives have changed. Like, kids now. It's really cool to watch that. And then I remember hearing about Will, which I was so very sad to hear about Will. You know, stuff like I think about that a lot, actually. Will was such a good dude. Such a good guy.
A really good person. And you could tell, because you could tell the impact that he's had on people's lives over the years, and so many people. He was always like so special. And I'm gonna tell you this. This is one of the best stories that I have with me and Junior. I remember we were in ROTC, and it was me, Junior, and Dave. It was only the three of us in the class. It was only three of us. And so I remember we had PT. Well, like, we had PT one. A PT test, and we had to run this lap, a couple laps or whatever like that. And honestly, listen now, you know, I wasn't no runner, not at all. And anyway, so I remember Junior grabbing my hand to pull me forward so I could keep up with them. You know what I'm saying? Just reaching back and grabbing my hand so I could be a part. You know what I'm saying? Not like somebody just leaving you or whatever like that. Someone listen. Someone seeing you in the struggle and pulling you out. That just goes right with the story we was just talking about. That just goes, that was good. And that's the type of person that he is. I'm sorry, God. That's the type of person that he was. He always helped to pull people out of the struggle. And that was what I could always expect from him. And even like some years had passed and we didn't talk as much or wasn't in contact, but out of the blue, he would always pop up, and he would always say that he's not always on social media, but he always continued to watch and see the things that I was doing, and that he was that he was proud of me. And so those are the moments that now, you know, saying that he's gone, that I treasure the most. And also never forgetting that time when he reached back to pull me up, you know. So that and you know what, that's the type of stuff that I want to do, make sure that I'm able to be that type of light into somebody else's life. Like, I want to make sure that I'm able to reach back and pull them forward while they're in their struggle, or when they may feel like they tapped out, you know, just knowing that somebody's with you.
Yeah, if somebody with you, someone cares. You're not by yourself. I think that's one of the best legacies that we can. I think that's one of the best things that God can teach us to be. And like, just be there for one another.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the common theme of what we talk about all our stories, all our life. We all got different journeys. We all got different things we're trying to do in life. But at the end of the day, if we can really try to be there for each other, you know, it's important and it's big.
Yeah, absolutely. But Terrell, this has been like an amazing conversation. Like, I love talking with you, because you bring so much life to everything, you know, and just being able to be vulnerable and sit there and talk about everything that you've endured to get where you're at. And I'm so proud of you. And even if you feel like I haven't made it, you best believe that you've made it, and you're in a path of greatness. There's so much ahead of you. And then also just listen, So when we talk about those hard times and the things that we endure, it's healing as well. It
Yeah.
opens us up to be free.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're releasing. And that's the biggest part for me
Yeah.
is being able to release and let go, because even though like those situations that we endure were hard, we still know that God got us, but we still have to process it because it happened. You know what I'm saying? It's a big part of our lives and it impacted us in a way, you know what I'm saying? And so, just being able to openly share that. And also, not only is it bringing healing to you, but it's going to help somebody else as well. This conversation brought healing to me because listen, because everything that you said, I've been through myself. I experienced that. And so it was just like, man, like I was like, man, get out of my life. What are you doing? Like, how do you tell my story? I've been there.
It's same for you too, and for you to have allow this space, and because a lot of times, like like I said, I think we're both very private people, but you have this energy about you that makes it feel comfortable, to share it. So for you to even have this platform for that, like I think that's so dope, and it's been healing for me as well. And I can only imagine what your story is now. I was going to flip the tables at one day, like, all right, now I'm gonna call you and see.
You need to. You need to. You do. You need to. You need to. You need to. Now listen. I will put it all on the table because I love for people to know, like people just see things and they just all like a friend of mine, and I said, you know what? People just think that I'm rich, and he says, you have that vibe about you, like, you know what I'm saying?
How you carry yourself.
Yeah, and I was just like, well, if that's what God is saying, I'm pulling that energy towards me. You know what I'm saying? It's in my head, but the thing is that God has blessed me over the years, and I've lived a really good life, and I also endured some hardship. I mean, some turbulence. It was an awakening. But I feel like God also has placed me in positions where I could be able to see bits and pieces of my future, and I feel like saying like there's so much more ahead of me. There's so much more to come, and I feel like when God shows me little things, I always think like, that's next for me, or God just want me to be able to see this. So I always try to see God in every situation. So I really feel like, I feel like maybe I will be rich for God, for Christ, not for myself or whatever, because I'm definitely not a selfish person or whatever, but I feel like God may use me in that capacity to be able to help more people. Yeah.
And honestly, I can tell someone looking on the outside looking in at you, like seeing your growth over the years, like how you, like, exactly that energy you exude. You're so intelligent. I see your growth. I love the way you present stuff. You sent me like a couple of writings with things like a couple times. Like, I got no notes. This is perfect. So how you able to compartmentalize, like, just different things in life and regurgitate it for people to understand in such an intelligent way. Keep going. I'm telling you, you got this, T. You got it. I'm telling you, you got this. I feel like you just getting started. You have
I feel like dancing.
Listen, I'm telling you, like, you keep going. Because I'm telling you, you got it. You got this. You got the talent for it. You deserve it. You got this.
I pray that one day that you and I, me, you, and D, will get back to the three amigos, the squad, and get back together, and we'll put some writing to a paper, and you know what, and you know what else? We'll have our own money to finance it. We'll have our own money to finance it.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the fact. Yeah, actually, I talked to her the other day. I need to hit her up, see how she's doing, but she's good. She had a kid actually.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's married with a kid now. She's living in Florida.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good for her. Yeah. I like that. Good for her. Yeah. I remember that she went to law school. I do remember that part. And that's probably the last time I spoke to her. I think so. I think that's probably the last time after she was graduating from law school.
Yeah, she's JAG now. She's a lawyer, practicing law for the government.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, D, like, she owned it, man.
I mean, look at God, how God opened those doors for us. You know what I'm saying? We're just like sitting there on a webinar, taking in everything that we can and just, you know what I'm saying, going out there and just taking chances and just like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And that's how I feel like I feel like I live like a free life. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like God has placed a lot of gifts in me, and I feel like I'm able to tap into all of them. And not like people say you need to focus on one thing, and then once you do that, then you can move to the other. I don't feel like that's what God's doing in my life, because I feel like he's opened up so many doors, at one time. And we see it all the time, because how many times we see actors and artists that tap into different areas. They're never stagnant. They're not working on one project and moving on. So what makes you think that I can't have that same gift and ability to move forward like that? So I don't listen to what people say. I listen to what I hear God saying. And all I heard God say was keep going. And that's exactly what I've been doing.
And that's what you do. And for whoever told you that, to me, that's just an example of someone putting their own fears of themselves onto you. And that's all it is. Because I mean, what works for someone else doesn't mean it doesn't work for you. You do you. And in fact, if you already know that, I think that's already that's over half the battle. Like having that mindset. The mindset is the biggest thing, man. The mental warfare is the biggest thing. And that's why I always knew like peace of mind was like one of the greatest gifts that God can give you. But it really is true, because there's a lot of turmoil that goes on in our own head. And that's the biggest battle that we can face, more than physical, more than anything. Because once your mind is once you're in turmoil in your mind, everything else is going to be turmoil. Yeah. If you have like a peace of mind, so like you knowing that and having that strength of mind is very key and very important. So that's one thing I really wish for everybody.
Listen, I'm big on. I'm gonna rebuke you. Get on away from me. Back up. I know.
Is this where our bonds coming out? Go on now, man. I ain't got time for that, man. Shoot. Come on, Geechee. I ain't got time, man. You better go somewhere, man.
That's right. You better go on.
Go somewhere, man. I ain't got time for that. Walk in your mouth, man.
That is so funny. That is so funny. Man, listen, this has been so great. This has been so good for me. This is definitely a way to start my Saturday morning. This is perfect. And I definitely want to have. We definitely need to have another conversation. And honestly, I'll let you flip it. I'll let you lead.
I'm dope. I'm so down for that.
Yes,
I have like a whole list of questions.
Jesus Christ!
I get all up in your bitch.
That's okay, because I'm okay with telling it. I always feel like I don't want anybody else to tell my story. I feel like, and I don't like to really tell other people's story because, saying I hadn't lived it, but I like to tell my own story, saying? Because when I tell it, I want to give I want to make sure that I give all of it, saying? I like to paint a picture so that you could feel what I was feeling, that's just how I am. So definitely when you're ready, definitely, I'm open to sharing. Okay. I'm gonna hold on to this video because when you hit that Tyler Perry stat, I'm gonna have this video on file, and I'm be selling it everywhere. I'm gonna give you a lifetime movie. Just go ahead and give me the permission right now.
I give you all rights. All right, see you got it. AOT is this where we do our chorus? We doing our choruses, right? Right,
no, sir.
Yo. Oh, Zio. Oh, come on, T.
No, sir. On that note,
music. Speak to me now.
Gosh, man, did you take it all the way back to high school? That is so funny. That is so funny. You are so crazy. And I'm so glad that you're still able to have that sense of humor, saying all these years and you still could just be who you are. You know how people just change and become so different? No, absolutely. Yeah. The exact same Terrell.
Have you ever seen me take life too seriously? Like,
nothing wrong.
You know you ain't like that. You gotta have it. You gotta have it. You gotta have that sense of that love of life, because life will try to beat it out of you, but you gotta hold it as much joy as you can.
Well, hopefully when someone hears this video, they'll be able to know, like if they feel like if someone wants to reach out to you and, saying for inspiration or just to ask some questions or whatever like that, they'll know that you're a down to earth person and that they can be able to come. They'll be able to come to you and saying you would direct them. It definitely helps to lighten the load or make people feel more at ease, knowing that you're not like an uptight, like I'm too busy for you type person or whatever. No,
not at all. And then of course, I was just like, of course I don't have everything figured out. I'm still learning, still growing too. But absolutely, if there's any questions, people want to reach out to me. Absolutely, I'm like more than happy to chat with people.
Yeah,
whatever advice I can. Absolutely.
Yeah. On that note, because I know I know you and I know me, I know that we'll keep talking. And so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up right now. And I'm just going to say again, I'm going to just say again, thank you so very much for coming on and being able to share your story and just letting the world know who you are and know that they have so much more to look forward from you in the future. So much more. So
No,
much
and you
more.
too. No, and right back. I'm giving that love right back because it's absolutely the same for you. So thank you for having me. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for thinking I had like enough to say for to possibly help someone.
You have
So
more than
thank you
enough.
for this thank you for this platform because you're doing it. You're doing it. And you're killing it. I can't wait to see your growth and what you got next coming.
Yeah,
It's coming.
I know it is. But Terrell, I love you, man. I always will. And you know what I said? If anything I could ever do for you, hit me up.
All right, let's do it. That's what's up.
This episode is sponsored by the Twindle Foundation. The Twindle Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to changing the wealth gap of African Americans and minorities by increasing homeownership. Did you know that 44% of Black families own their home compared to 73% of white families? A barrier to minority homeownership is student loan debt. Through scholarship, the Twindle Foundation is providing minority students with an opportunity to take on less financial debt. To give to the Twindle Foundation, visit www.twindlefoundation.com.